No, no. I knew I wouldn't be the last one. Did they also tell you the tales about the Keeper's spirit? They've lured you into a trap, you know. And you fell for it. Because you're arrogant. Just as I am. As I was. Of course not. At least not according to your definition of the word. But then again, what is reality anyway? If I told you that you and your friend Sirius actually lie dead at the bottom of the sea, and that everything that has happened so far, your journey to Ark, the search at the Sun Coast, was only a dream, would you be able to recognize the truth? The answer is no. Because you don't want to be dead. Therefore, your mind will do anything to make you believe this entire dream you've had was and is reality. Doesn't it? Tell me, what is time to the dead and dreaming anyway? The last second before the water floods into your lungs. The very last instant before it tears them apart. In your mind, it could be an eternity. A self-created sanctuary built from nothing but your wishes. But what's the point in talking anyway? You don't want to believe me. And I'm tired of trying to make you. Now leave me alone, before we make the suppressor even angrier. He doesn't like words. He likes the silence. What? They haven't told you about him? Oh, that's so typical. The suppressor. He's the reason why we will be imprisoned here forever. And why we can't access our feelings and wishes. And he does it because he wants us to lose hope. To stop believing. And... you know, sometimes I wonder if that's exactly what we humans... what I have to do to finally be free. Give up. Detach myself from the dreams of the past. Who knows if there were anything else than phantasms to begin with. But no. No, not yet. It's too early to surrender. And isn't that what makes us human, anyway? To hope? And to just keep on waiting for that one miracle that will end the pain once and for all? Yeah, I'll wait. And you will wait with me forever. What the? How did you do that? You simply opened it? But that's impossible. All these years it's kept me from escaping, and you just... Come on. We have to look. We have to look and see what's outside. We won't get far, but still we have to see. Come, lead the way. What? Leave me alone! The suppressor's punishment. It will be horrible. No, you haven't. Because you're blind. The suppressor is here, in every single stone, in every bone, in every drop of blood, and yet you are too blind to see it. But I should have known. I mean, what can you expect from someone who has killed his entire family? I followed you because for a brief moment, you made me want to believe, and now you've dragged me into the abyss along with you. Of course I'm a part of you, and you are a part of me. Isn't that obvious? But I should have known you wouldn't understand. You're too weak. You always were. No, there isn't. Just look at us. Look at what we are. We are the damned because we are trapped too deeply in the past. And that's why we do not deserve freedom. Well, well. So you figured it out? Yes. I am what keeps you in this place. Was it blind rage that made you act, or have you truly understood who I am? Have you understood what drives you and determines your actions? The salt corrodes your skin, and the water filling your lungs is cold. But you still haven't found it, child, have you?
Oh, hey. Good to see you awake. How are you feeling? Good question. The room was empty when I came here. Actually, that's quite weird, now that you mention it. The entire temple seemed kind of deserted. Probably a ceremony or something like that. Now, tell me, how are you holding up? I heard this trial's quite the feat. Apparently some of the novices never wake up again. In the temple, the curarium to be precise. You were brought here when you were traveling with that Ixon guy. I think the others are already awake, but I didn't want to leave you here, so I thought I'd just stay. I mean, hey, you are a keeper of the first sigil now, aren't you? I believe congratulations are in order. Don't mention it. Bad, though, that this keeperness won't get you anywhere. Do you know why? Because you're pathetic. Simply pathetic.
I said you are pathetic. At first we believed it would be more exciting this time. But now that we've seen the new prophet, our hopes are gone. You're a joke.
A nobody who let his only friend kick the bucket.
As if you'd ever accept that. You humans are always so damn persistent, aren't you? Why? Why can't you just let go?
Because in the end, you are powerless, just as all those before you. And you, prophet, you are the biggest joke of all.
You are nothing but an urchin.
A weakling.
And a murderer.
And that is why you will burn. All of you. The cleansing will happen, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Is that so? Such presumption from a fish who thinks his pondering the world. The world is an interplay of cause and effect, and the only logical consequence of your existence is annihilation. That's the way it was, and that's the way it's going to be. But enough of the banter, urchin. We wanted to meet you, and so we did, even though the result is rather sobering. Now wake up. Keep on stumbling through the mist.
Thank Malphus. I was starting to think I was the only one. How are you? You look exhausted. You did. That's probably one of the after effects of the potion, but it will pass, I'm sure of it. But it's good to see the Grandmaster was right after all. I woke up just a few hours earlier, and he was here in the meantime. He didn't doubt for a single second that you would make it. But I suppose mutual congratulations are in order. We made it. We passed the trial. Almost, yes. All that is left to do is to take the oath, and then Grandmaster Aranthiel will exalt us to the keepers of the first sigil. Speaking of whom, he also told me some things while you were asleep. About the Pyreans, about these dreams, and of course, about this cycle. This is so bizarre, really. At first we're told out of nowhere that the gods have died, and now humanity is on the brink of extinction. This is a lot to take in. Hard to say. I never had those dreams the Grandmaster talked about, even though I'm magically gifted. But then again, I always had the feeling that the Red Madness was more than an ordinary disease. Well, I suppose all of this explains a lot. At least now I can understand why the Grandmaster was willing to break all the traditions of the Order just to get you exalted to be a keeper. According to him, most of our battle against the cycle will stand or fall with you. Yes, I believe that. It's a great responsibility you've been given, and as impressive as your skills are, I would not want to change places with you. Well, as I said, we both have to take the Holy Oath. You should talk to the Grandmaster as soon as you're ready. He's waiting for you in the Emporium. Right. Dunwar. The apothecary examined him about an hour ago, and it doesn't look good. It's likely that he'll never wake up again. He was impulsive, yes. But to some extent, I can understand why he was the way he was. You know, Dunwar was one of those people who tried to gild their insecurity with boastful behavior. The reality is that he was the last of his bloodline, and his faith in the path and his destiny as a keeper were all that he had left. And who knows, maybe he would have been a great help to the Order with the right guidance. But I guess Master Bartar's revelation was just too much for him. It's hard to be told that everything you've lived for was a lie. Well, maybe I just don't show it as much. But yes, in a way, you're probably right. I suppose that's mainly due to the fact that to me, as opposed to Dunwar, the Order always stood for an idea. And an idea doesn't die with the one who first thought of it. Funny that the Grandmaster said nearly the same thing during the exaltation. Dunwar would have considered it blasphemy. That's true. A lot of crimes were committed during the Lightborn's reign, and I don't want to minimize that. But I also think a lot of those crimes were unavoidable, so to speak. Imagine you're the king of a small island, and one day your realm gets attacked by a fleet of Scarab Reavers. The invasion catches you completely off guard, and within a few hours, the Reavers have advanced to the farmland, just a few feet from your city's main gates. And before you know it, you have to make a decision. Will you use the time that remains to entrench your army within the city's walls to have a better chance of surviving a siege? Or do you send them into the field to fight the Reavers there, knowing that there is only a slight chance to save the farmers, but a big risk that you will lose both the city and the farmers? It would, yes. But what if your foray fails, and ends up being the reason why the Scarab can break through the city's fortifications? Wouldn't that too make you responsible for all the townsfolk they would kill once they got in? What I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter what you do. There will be people who will despise you for your decision. If your attempt to rescue the farmers fails, you will be accused of having acted blindly and idealistically. And if you just stay in the city, they will say you didn't even try. Of course, there's a small chance the foray might work, but should decisions like that really be made as if they were a game of dice? As I said, I don't mean to absolve the Lightborn of their crimes, but I'd wager my left hand that they had a lot of similar decisions to make. I knew the question would come eventually. I suppose the answer depends on whether you're in the mood for some gloomy talk. Sooner or later, you'll hear it from someone else anyway, so why not from me first? As you wish. Where should I start? Maybe with the fact that I don't remember anything that happened before my 6th winter. I don't know where I was born, and I never got to know my parents. I wish I knew. What I do know, though, is that the first memory I have is of waking up in the middle of some village. It was dark, and I felt dizzy and, I don't know, empty? That's probably the best way to describe it. I eventually found the strength to get up and look around, and, well, that's when I realized what was actually going on around me. The entire village. It had been destroyed. There were corpses everywhere. Men, women, children. And the houses had been crushed as if some mad god had rampaged through the streets there. And it had all just happened hours before because the destruction was still fresh. Whatever it was, I didn't have much time to think about it. As soon as I got up, I saw 3 riders coming through the smoke. One of them got off his horse, ran towards one of the corpses, and started screaming something in my direction. Then I felt a blow on the back of my head, and I lost consciousness. By the name of the sun, it's strange to talk about it like this. It's been so long, but the memory feels as if it had happened yesterday. Well, it turned out the riders were hunters who had come from that village. They must have observed the whatever it was from the distance and ridden back to the village. At least I think that's how it went. I guess I'll never find out. The reason they thought I was somehow involved is that the village priest found me a couple of days before it happened near a shrine in the wilderness. Apparently, I was wearing torn clothing, and no matter what the apothecary tried, he couldn't wake me up from my comatose sleep. And it seems that made the riders think I was some kind of witch child, or unholy beast, whichever you prefer. For you, maybe. For them, as simple people, it was probably the best explanation they had. And think about it, it's not that far off. A motherless child who neither talks nor breathes steadily is found abandoned on the roadside and has a strange mark on her face. They leave to go hunting, and when they come back, they find their village in ruins with that foundling child being the only survivor. You have to admit, it's not that much of a stretch, even if those men hadn't been superstitious farmers. Probably. Truth be told, I try not to think about it too much. And actually, it doesn't matter, because I somehow managed to get away before they could do anything. I even made it to Ark all by myself, which didn't turn out to be much of an improvement in the end, because I was pathless. Yes. Thinking about it now, I actually wonder how I made it through my time down there. But maybe that's one of the advantages of being a child. You don't think. You just act. Still, the winters down there were cruel, and if Master Tyrus hadn't found and taken care of me, I probably wouldn't have made it through my second year. Yes, otherwise I would not be here. He saw me, and he knew what he had to do, is how he put it. Of course, the Order wasn't too happy about a pathless child in the Scuola, just as some aren't happy about you being here. But Tyrus was a highly regarded man, and that's why they let it slide. It does, yes. But then, he had lost both his wife and daughter 5 years before he found me, so maybe I was some kind of substitute. I don't know. But in the end, it doesn't matter. I owe him everything. He was a good man, and that's all that matters. That's right, we do, but we are both still pathless, and that disqualifies us according to the holy verses. I guess now you understand why I was never as connected to Malphas's teaching as Dunmore was. To some of the Keepers, I am still an outcast, and no matter what I do, I always will be. Yes, and now I'm here. Well, here we've reached the end of my impressive tale. I hope you liked it. No, I guess I'm not. Gone. He was very old, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. But I'd prefer not to talk about it, if you don't mind. He does, yes, and he's not alone in his opinion. One of those hunters recognized me in the market my first year as a novice, and you can imagine that it was easy pickings for those who were already against my presence in the Order. From then on, they added names to the derogatory stares. Demon Child, Witch, whatever they could come up with. Maybe, but everything I'm capable of is the fruit of hard work, though they will never acknowledge that. You know what's funny? To some extent, I'm glad to be who I am. That way, people just leave me alone, and that gives me more time to focus on what's important, on my goals. Several, but I'd say that's enough of the gloomy stories, don't you think? There will be plenty of time for chatter in the future. Maybe. Yes, All of the Dalmordans fell victim to the Great Flesh Maggot Plague of 8215. Actually, it was almost sad to see him running around and boasting about his nobility, though everyone knew that without the help of the Order, he would have probably ended up living in a shack in the Undercity. If you can call that living. You should. It's already late, but if you want, I can show you the most important places in the temple before you go to the Emporium. What do you think? Good. Then get your gear from the chest by your bed and we'll go.
Prophet, good to see you. How do you feel? You've never been in any danger. If I had doubted your abilities, even to the slightest, I would have never spoken out for you. In any case, all that is left to do now is to recite the oath. Then we will finally deal with the more urgent matters. None of it, you'll see. The ceremony needs a little preparation, 1 day at least. Come back then. Even if it hurts to lose more time, the cleansing approaches, I can feel it. Just this night I had another of the dreams. People I knew, including you. But these people weren't themselves. There was something else, and it spoke through them. They mocked us and said our struggle against the cycle was pointless. It was peculiar. I believe that these beings are connected to the cycle. They must be the ones who cause it. You did? That is interesting. It must be related to our roles as emissaries. Maybe there is a connection between us. None. Maybe they are demons or magical entities of some kind, but they are different from everything I know. In any case, if they are indeed responsible for the cycle, they are our enemies. That's what matters for now. Come back tomorrow for the ceremony. Yes. Why do you ask? In an old temple in the northern mountains of Nerim. It was a bastion of our order before Narazul's armies conquered it after the Battle of Triomar. Ironic, I know.
Magisters never change.
They did. What are you getting at?
Where is this supposed to lead?
A fair point. But in the future, just be upfront. I do not like such veiled remarks. So, yes, my time in the prison was harsh. The hunger, the degradation, to name the most obvious. The worst, however, was the isolation. Ironically enough, that was the last thing I had expected, you know. From all the suffering there is, it seems so banal. But it isn't. You either find ways to cope with it, or it breaks you. Fortunately, I managed to do the former. For me, it was memories of the time before my incarceration, the prospect of what would come after it. They were my window into the outer world, so to speak. They reminded me that I was more than this deprived creature I had become in those dungeons. Strange. Everything seemed too bright, too unreal. I especially felt that in the cloister with Narazul's mages. I had difficulty talking to other people, and whenever I did, it felt as if the others were like wax figures. Like some cruel joke put in front of my eyes in order to mock me. Better. Our mission, my responsibility here as a leader, it has helped me to find my way back into the real world.
That's just how he is. Always talking rot.
What would have been the alternative? A life as a fisherman? If the things I had to live through taught me one thing, then it was how important it is for me to be right here, right now, doing what I do. In fact, this is precisely what is missing in the world. People who do not let the whims of fate break their resolve. Now, enough of this. We have business to attend to. Yes? That depends on whom you ask. In some writings of the Pyreans, we are referred to as chosen ones. but this is wrong. A better word would be chess figures with their own will. Whatever force causes the cycle also gave us powers and a task. But fulfilling that task is our own responsibility. No. Well, that is something else we only know in broad strokes. It is my task to lead mankind in its battle against the cleansing, to rally our strengths, so to speak. Yours is to read the Echo and help us gain the knowledge we need for victory. How exactly you're going to do that is something we still have to find out. I do not know, but there are hints. We will see. Good question. In their writing, the Pyreans say it has existed for aeons. Since this world exists, since the Sea of Eventualities exists, so too then does the cycle. It seems to be a part of existence, so to speak. The Pyreans didn't, and neither did the dozen civilizations that came before them. That is what we know. But as for what happened before that, our knowledge about the past is limited. All that matters for now is that the cycle threatens us, and that we have to stop it. As I said before, my knowledge about that is limited. But if it helps you, imagine that it is a way of perceiving that which connects us all, our subconscious. Yes. You know, most people perceive themselves as an entity separate from the rest of the world. And while this is partially true, there is something that connects us. Dark corners of our mind, bridges to which we in a conscious state do not have access to. But you do not need to be supernaturally gifted to feel that these bridges exist. I am sure you have experienced it yourself at one time or another. A moment where you knew exactly what another person thought or would do next. People with close blood ties can especially feel that connection. Children and their mothers, siblings, and especially twins. Correct. And while most people hardly feel this connection at all, as if looking through a tinted window, to you it is wide open during your visions. Their bodies might be, but the traces they left behind still remain. Everything that was, everything that is, and everything that will be, it already exists in the Sea of Eventualities. This is the basic principle of magic. And time is not a straight line. Only the barriers of our mind make us perceive it as such. Visions, premonitions, dreams that become reality. These are all leftovers of waves from other eventualities that spill over into our reality. There have always been people able to read them, but none so good at it as you are, thanks to the Echo.
Ah, there you are. Glad you made it. So, how was it? I heard quite some stories about this trial, and was never sure what to make of it. Yeah, I changed my mind. Come, let's go upstairs. It'll be worth it. So, wine or pipe? Chilean Sweetwater tobacco. 100 times better than what they smoke here. Consider it a congratulatory gift for passing the trial. Nothing better than a good pipe and a nice sight to go along with it. It's always sad to see how few people can truly appreciate these things. Anyway, tell me, my friend, what is it that drives you? I've been asking that myself since we met. I mean, it's not like anyone's forcing you to play errand boy for Arenthiel, is there? And with your abilities, you could make a fortune as a mercenary. Not to mention the danger you put yourself in. Securing the excavation site, passing the trial, they certainly haven't been easy on you so far. Huh, I figure. In any case, it's interesting to see how you've gotten from being a magically gifted refugee to the center of all this. Kind of reminds me of a woman I used to travel with, Alicia. No matter where she went, she always ended up in the eye of the storm. That was 13 years ago now. By the wise hermit, time really is merciless. We got hired for the same job. Usually I work better on my own, but this partnership was refreshing in every aspect. It felt good to know someone's got your back for a change, especially with the kind of work I do. Which is why we decided to stick together after that first job. And it went great, at least initially. She was just too intense. That's the right word for it. She wanted everything, and she wanted it at once. The rarest jewels, the most handsome men, the best contracts. If you would have asked her to steal the Golden Queen's crown, she would have done it without hesitation, just for the thrill of it. We traveled together, and we had sex, so yes, according to most people's definition of it, we were a couple. That was, let me think, about 3 years. Yeah, we went to Araziel, Kira, Artwend, and one time we even fought a group of petrified on Millet. She fought as ardently as she lived. I don't know how I would have survived that fight without her. Oh yes, she was. I love a good adventure and earthly pleasures, but I can cope without them. I could always tell a difficult job from a reckless one, and that's kept me alive. Lycia pretty much lived by one principle. The more extreme the job, the better. With that attitude, I guess it was obvious that things would go south eventually, one way or the other. Well, she started expecting more from our partnership, our talks, and the occasional sex. As she saw it, you either go all the way or you don't go at all. I wasn't ready for that. Love as she defined it, yeah. Had it been for her, we would have married after that first night. That's a long story. Not one that puts me in a favorable light. At least if you're like most people. Let's save that for another time. Split up. Yeah, that's one way to put it. But anyway, enough about me. What about you? Has there ever been someone in your life? Or have you always been the lone wolf? Oh my, is that how you think of me? Can't two good-looking adventurers have a nice chat on a beautiful evening without implications? But jokes aside, I think I know what you're trying to say. And as attractive as you are, I'm afraid I have to pass. Samara? No, I don't know. Maybe the entire thing with Lycia was enough for me. Sex is fine, but I guess I'm just not naive enough for anything else anymore. Love, love, love. People have such lofty expectations these days, really. Sometimes I think it would help us all to admit that there isn't that much that separates us from the apes. You say what's on your mind, I'll give you that. But as attractive as you are, it just wouldn't feel right. I don't know why. Now, come on. Let's not make this unnecessarily awkward, shall we? We're here, and we're having a good talk. Isn't that enough for the moment? Why don't you tell me a little more about this trial? I heard you passed it together with that quiet girl, Kalia. What's she like? I've heard some stories about her. That's just life, I think. There comes a point when you've done all you can. My. We've certainly lost track of time, haven't we? I really need to hit the hay for a couple hours now. I'll have to go look for some new work tomorrow. And I've heard about a nobleman who's looking for a sellsword. That is, if Arenthiel or old Bushybeard doesn't have a new job for me by then. Say what you want about them. Their pay is beyond generous. I'll see you around, my friend.
That? By Malthus, where did you get that? You didn't buy it from that cutthroat, did you? Please, let me see it. I need to know it's real. Aye, of course. By the name of the sun, yes, that's hers. And Vera was right. What? No, Bella, she was my daughter. She left us one moon's turn and a day ago now. Flesh maggots, she... A week before we found out, she had met this young man, you know? Oh, you should have seen her. There was so much life in her, so much joy. And then, all of a sudden... No, it just isn't fair. You did? I'm sorry to hear that. She was a poet, you know? She could play the lute and sing like no other. And she even taught herself how to write. Vera, my companion, and I, we thought she would one day travel through the lands and become a bard. Ah, what am I saying? I'm sure you have better things to do than listen to me grieving. But in case you want to know how her lute ended up in that bastard's hands, we had debts. And only 3 weeks after Bella left us, a Duneville caravan that carried a year's load of iron for us got robbed. But of course, neither that nor our loss made any difference to that cutthroat golfer, and he threatened to get me thrown into jail if I wouldn't pay by the first day of Star Summer Night. Well, I suppose you can connect the dots for yourself. The loot was precious, and we didn't have a choice. But still, it felt like selling a part of her. And until now, we had nothing left of her, save for the casket. Yes, that's very generous of you, really. Thank you. Her treasure chest, that's what she called it. She kept her songs and poems in there, and she would never show anything to anyone unless she considered it perfect. You know how poets are. And now she's gone, and only she knows how to open the casket. Aye, I should. But the casket was a present I made for her myself, and I made the lock special. It's a complicated mechanism, but simply put, there are 4 bolts that need to be pushed in a certain order, and only then will it open. Of course, I could smash it, but who knows what would happen to her things. If I somehow destroyed them, I would never forgive myself. Yes, left, right, left, down. But that's not all. The bolts have to be pushed 12 times. Aye, I'm quite sure she did. Vera and I have ideas as to where, but at the moment I can't afford to spend a single day without work. Look, you were very generous to me. I know it's a lot to ask for, but do you think you could help us find the other hints? I don't know. We hardly have anything left, so I cannot pay you. But maybe I could share my knowledge as a craftsman with you. And the Lord would surely bless you for your generosity. Ah, thank you. I'm not asking this lightly, but you seem like a good fellow, and that is rare these days. Bella loved this book of poetry, the Red Ballads, and there was one particular edition she always rented from the Ark Library. I hardly have any coin left to borrow it, but I'm almost sure she left a hint there. Aye, there was a place Bella always visited when she had spare time. She worked on her poems there, I think. It's not far from the harbor. Do you have a map? There. If she left another clue, it must have been there.
Sending a sellsword after me? Really, Milbert? How low can you go? How low can you go?
But... by Malthus, you! Please, you have to help me. She's completely lost her mind. It's the dust. She's not herself.
But you know what? It's too late now. You won't save him. Or maybe you will. But only over my dead body. I have nothing to lose anymore. Not that I ever had much to begin with. Oh, believe me, it will. I'd do it just to see that fucking smile wiped off his face.
Fuck the money! I've told you how he treated me since those raiders came for us. Yes, he pays for my room, but do you think he ever came to me in all those years? Or asked me how I was? Fuck it! I'm a goddamn mess, and I know it. But it's his fault because he was never there for me. Not when our parents died. Not when the dust took me. Never! Before he sent you to get the key, he asked me himself. And that was the first time I'd seen him in years. But no. This wasn't about me. This was about his goddamn business and the money Father left for the 2 of us. He wanted it for himself. Just like he always has.
Am I? Well, it doesn't feel like that. If it's the fucking dust, then I guess I should be grateful.
Thank you. By the name of the sun, the drugs did this to her. This goddamn dust. What? No, she rationalizes. Ever since she took her first sniff, she has changed and started to blame me for all her misery. Believe me, my friend, I did try. But the more I wanted to help her, the more she started to push me away. What happened to our family? It broke us both. Only that I managed to get back up again, and she didn't. I guess that's what it adds up to. Good question. I suppose at first you get your reward. Without you, I wouldn't be alive now. Here, you can take this key. It's to another slot in the bank's treasury. You can take whatever's in there. I owe you this, at least. And while I feel ridiculous to bring that up now, I promised you another book, didn't I? Which one do you want?
Greetings. You don't seem familiar. You're here for business, I assume. Finn and Carbos, of course. Who doesn't know them? An odd duo and completely inseparable. Why do you ask? What? How? How do you know that? I'm Malthus, that's... One tragic event after another. Now listen. This question might seem peculiar, but is there any chance you found amulets on them? Yes, that's them. Thank you. We owe it to them. Here, you've earned this. I'll send a pigeon with the news to the League as soon as possible. With all due respect to your thirst for knowledge, I am not a magister, and I've got my hands full. In a nutshell, we are healers, and our path is to cure ailments with magic and alchemy. Our monastery is far to the north, in the Frostcliff Mountains. However, you won't be able to reach it at the moment due to the heavy snowfall. And in case that doesn't sate your appetite, there are a couple of books about us in the library, or maybe even the Chronicum.